Here now, so if you don't mind with the ping pong. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Every time, like at the beginning here.
We're starting with the other page. Which page are you on?
I'm on page 1.
Oh, number 1?
Yeah,
Oh, Sa'ad Rabbi. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Okay, I thought you were holding my number. Okay. So, it's Erev Yutes Kislev. So this is a Yutes Kislev topic. Tonight also happens to be the yard site of the Baruch of Mezhebush. And this topic also relates to him. And it also relates to something in this week's parsha. We will we'll discuss that all in a moment. All the time. And keep him out. The Alter Rebbe the Alter Rebbe himself had a tremendous passion for Chassidus, but he passed it on to his followers. And different than his friends, his contemporaries, the Alter Rebbe very much encouraged his Chassidim to learn, break their heads on Kabbalistic ideas, Chassidus, deep spiritual contemplations. Really absorb it and grasp it in your mind. And we begin with number 1. You'll see where we're going with this, but we'll start with number 1. Number 1 is a Gemara Masechta Shabbos, Daf Lamed Aleph. B'shah shemachnisin adam ledin, when we bring somebody into judgment after someone goes to heaven, it's known the Ramban describes, there are generally 3 judgments a person faces. There's the yearly judgment on the Rosh Hashanah. There's the judgment after one leaves this world and he enters heaven, he gets judged. And then there's Yom Hadin Rabbah, the day of the great judgment. When Mashiach comes will be the great Yom Hadin, when lots of interesting things will happen. But when someone goes to heaven, when he gets judged in heaven, we ask him like this. First of all, did you do business honestly? Were you honest in business? The Alter Rebbe once touched up Chassidus. What this refers to is, did you work with your emunah? That means the natural emunah that every single Yid is born with. Did you nurture it? Did you work on it? Did you work to reveal it, to expand it, to develop it? Nasasav nasata bemunah. Did you develop the natural belief that you're born with as a Jew? But that's a Chassidish pshat. Simple pshat is, did you do business honestly? Next question. Kavato itim l'Torah. Did you come to Thursday night and learn? Were you kaveh time to learn? Next question. Asakta bepru uravu. Were you Isaac in having children? The Marsha actually learns, it doesn't mean did you have kids or not. Did you help Bechlal, the idea of Peru and the Ravu in the world? Making shidduchim, marrying off orphans. Did you make sure that Bechlal children should be born? That's how the Marshal learns the Gemara. Next question they'll ask you is, Tzipisa liyeshua, did you await the redemption? Next question, Pilpal, right? How's it looking so far? Pilpalta b'chachma, were you mefalful in wisdom and learning? Next, Hevanta dover mitoich dover, did you learn to derive one idea from amidst another idea? These are questions they're going to ask. And even if you check yes to every single one, va'afilu hachin nonetheless, the Gemara learns it from a pasuk that I yiras Hashem hi oitzaroi. If fear of Hashem is your treasure, is your oitzer, your treasure. If you're full of fear of Hashem then you got it going. But Eloi, if not, then none of it counts. You can check all the other boxes, but if you don't have fear of God, then it's all without substance. Mashal, bring a mashal, la'adam, to a person, sha'arma l'shlucha, he told his messenger, ha'leili kur chitin la'aliyah, please bring me a kur of wheat to the attic. It's a lot of wheat. Halach, the guy went up, v'helala, he brought it in, sitting in the attic. So Amalei, the Balabos, asked the Shliach, a Ravta li bohen, did you mix for me inside kav chumtin, a kav of chumtin? Chumtin is some type of preservative. Salt, it's some grain, and salt, it's a preservative. Amalei Lavi said, no, I didn't mix in the preservative. Amalei said to him, mutavim lo yehelei, so better you wouldn't have brought it to the attic at all. It's all going to be wasted now. So the nimshal is, someone could have checked all the other one.
Exactly. No good deed goes unpunished. That's what I understand.
The Yiddish Hashem is the preservative. Sorry. Yeah, it's Lashon Nekeva. Yira.
No, just in general.
Yeah. But if, in other words, you could check all the other boxes and you're a great person. You have tons of wheat in the attic. It's all going to be moldy, though, if it doesn't have Yiddish Hashem.
What is Yiddish Hashem?
So the Alter Rebbe used to quote this and said, you need Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe would say that this Gemara is talking about a misnagid. This Gemara is talking about somebody that learns a lot. He's mafalful in Chachma. The guy's a baki in Shas, and he knows he's a big. And not just that, he's a good person. But he could be cold and hard on the inside. Then it's like a lot of stale wheat. All the Gemara, stale pages of Gemara, moldy, stale pages. You need the preservative, the fear of Hashem, the lachluchis, the wetness, the chayis that Chassidus can offer.
I think it would say Aleph. Like, that's Misnag, just to say Yira. That's like the whole thing.
Yiras Hashem, the Alter Rebbe says here, doesn't mean I'm afraid to do an Aveira. That for sure we're talking about. This guy, he's waiting for Mashiach, he's kovei to Matayra. He's not doing Aveira, he's a busy guy, he's busy. He's a frum guy. The Yiras Hashem here means an awe towards the Eibishter, a higher level of Yira, not just fear, you might get hurt, or even fear to rebel, but a certain awe, appreciation, a feeling of bittul, a warm feeling of the greatness of the Eibishter, an awe and respect, which comes from Chassidus. So that's what the Alter Rebbe said. So Reb Chaim Volozhiner, the Vilna Gaon's great student, heard about this, and he asked a kasha. Because the Gemara right after this in Masechta Shabbos says, do you know how much preservative you need? How much chumtin do you need for the kur of wheat? The Gemara says, a kur is a measurement of 30 sa'ah. Every sa'ah has 6 kav. So the amount of preservative is 1 out of 180. So Chaim Volozhin asked the Alter Rebbe, if your chassidus is this preservative, then maybe 1 day a year, 2 days a year, you learn a bissel chassidus. But you guys are busy learning every day for hours. If you're proving from this Gemara, you don't need that much preservative.
When you say he asked learn that much for a little bit.
He didn't ask face to face. He asked one of the Alter Rebbe's chassidim, and the chassid passed on the question to the Alter Rebbe. That's how I'm aware of the story. And the Alter Rebbe's response was, yeah, you don't need that much preservative, but to mix the preservative properly amongst all the wheat takes a long time. It's the mixing that takes a long time. Right. The dose of chassidus may not be that much, but to observe it. A ravta, exactly. Thank you. That's the lashon. It's not just. He doesn't say, "Hey Vesa, did you bring a ravta?" You have to mix. It's the absorbing. So you hear a word chassidus, you think about it. It's the hispainus. It's the thinking. It's the absorbing. It's the letting it settle in one.
Application.
Yeah. It's even so. It's just thinking about it, letting it settle. It's not often you hear an idea. Sure, buy a business idea. Say, wait a second, let me think about it. Now you let the idea settle. That could take a long time. The hearing it takes a moment. Sometimes you need days to think about it or longer. So that's one Maisa. So you see that's one Maisa. Nocha Maisa, we have a Gemara here in number 2. It's a Gemara in Bab Metzia. The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak said, La'olam yashlish adam es ma'osav. A person should always divide their money into 3. Shlish b'karka, 1/3 of your money into real estate. Shlish b'pragmatia, 1 into movable merchandise. Shlish tachas yada, 1/3 in the bank, cash, to be available to invest if an opportunity comes up.
Liquid.
Right. It's Bob Metzia Daf Mem Beis. That's the Gemara. So the story is like this, that there was a certain fellow Misnagid, warm to Chassidus, a guy who still wasn't sure which path of life, makes his way to the Alter Rebbe. He tells the Alter Rebbe that I know some of your Chassidim, they're learning Chassidus more than half a day. They're just like soaking it up more and more. But he said, you yourself write, there's a Gemara in Kedushin that says a person should always divide his learning into three. A shalish b'mikra, a third in the chumash, or nach. Machlokes if it's also nach, but at least chumash. 1/3 of your time into Mishnah, which is halacha. 1/3 of your time into Talmud, which is Gemara. It's a Gemara in Kedushin. You should divide your learning into three. A third into Mikra, a third into Mishnah, a third into Talmud. Now the Alter Rebbe, so in one place he says that learning Chassidus goes into the shlish of Mishnah. One place he says it goes in the shlish of Mikra. So the Rebbe has a whole sikha about that. Which one is it? It's a contradiction of the Alter Rebbe in his Hilchas Talmud Torah versus the Alter Rebbe in a Maimer in the Likutei Torah in Parshas Vayikra. So the Rebbe says it depends how you learn. If you're reading it like Chumash, just reading because it's holy words, then it's part of the third of Mikra. But if you really understand and you dissect what you're learning, it becomes part of Shlish b'Mishnah. That's the Rebbe's sikha. Okay, but this guy asks the Alter Rebbe, wait a second. You yourself say that Chassidus belongs to one of the categories. So it's not more than 1/3 of the day. And you have Chassidim that are learning hours, sometimes days and days. So the Alter Rebbe told this guy, you're a Lamdan, you remember the Gemara in Bab Metzia, the one we saw in number 2? You remember the Gemara in Bab Metzia? 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. The Alter Rebbe tells him, but you're a businessman now. How do you follow this? You divide your money the same way? So he says, Rebbe, listen, 1,500 years ago in Bavel, maybe life was different. It made sense to divide your money this way. But now, 250 years ago, in White Russia, things are a bit different. You got to change it up. So he said, no, I don't follow what it says in the Gemara, because that worked then, but now it works differently. So Alter Rebbe told him the same thing about the Gemara in Kedushin. 2,000 years ago, it worked maybe to learn Chassidus 1/3 of the day. Now things are different. Golos is much darker. For some people, you got to learn Chassidus 2/3 of the day. So that's another story we have. So what do you see from these two stories? They're both interesting stories. Alter Rebbe is proving things from the Gemara. Both of them have the same idea, that there is no limit how much Chassidus you should learn. The more, the better. He told the Chaim Volozhner, you spend mix, he's going to absorb the ideas. He tells this guy, no longer is it 1/3 Mikra, 1/3 Mishnah, 1/3 Talmud. Now we need much more Chassidus. How much? Whatever works, just keep on going. The Alter Rebbe was very much a lone soldier in this, in his opinion.
There's not that I'm saying Tanya a couple of days ago that today we have to focus more on davening. Today, actually, focus more on davening. In the olden days, they were doing more tefillah, teras and nasa, whatever, blah blah blah. The same similar idea.
Bring some Chaim Vital, more Gemilas Chasadim. Right, exactly. Things change, right? We know the Alter Rebbe Bechlal suffered from 4 different groups of people. He suffered from the Goyim. They tried to kill him. They threw him in jail. They harassed him. He suffered from the Faraya Jews, the Maskilim, the Enlightenment movement. The Alter Rebbe had to deal with many of them. Many of them traveled to the Alter Rebbe to take him on, to meet him face to face and see what he's about. And the Alter Rebbe fought with the Haskalah movement. Then he also fought with Misnagdim, Fruma Yidden. What?
They actually heard him.
The Maskilim felt they were having Hatzlacha in Western Europe for sure. In Germany, where they were based out of Lublin, they were having Hatzlacha in Lithuania. In Vilna, there were a number of Misnagdim, beards, Bekim and Shas, experts in Tanakh, who were steeped men of Haskalah. The Frierdiker Rebbe says some of them were not from at all, but they were living and nobody could detect it. In fact, one of the biggest Misnagdim who was always talking into the ears of the Vilna Gaon, Yosef Fesselis, I think his name was outright apikaris, and the Vilna Gaon never picked up on it. But
what were they trying to do?
what were they trying to do? They were sending Bochrim to yeshivas out of town. They were sending them all to Berlin, to college, that they should push it to, learn language, learn science, learn the arts, and go, give up old Judaism. And in Vilna, they were having some success, partly because the Vilna Gaon Koch, the Vilna Gaon said, anything that you're missing in secular studies, you're missing tenfold in Torah. Friedrich Rebbe quotes this in the Rishima, you're missing tenfold in Torah. So they were capitalizing on that statement, telling you got to learn grammar, language, a bit of mathematics, some science. It's only going to help you, right? And they got the boys excited. They told the parents we're sending them to the best yeshivas out of town. Secretly, they were sending them all to colleges, universities. In fact, Moshe Meislish was originally a student of the Vilna Gaon, and he was also a Korban. He also ended up in Germany. He went to Berlin and he studied there. He mastered many languages, and he was one of the few people that remained frum. He became a chassid of the Alter Rebbe later, the story of Napoleon, because he was an expert linguist. He had learned different languages while he was spending time in Berlin. Later it worked, the Alter Rebbe.
What were they doing with the Alter Rebbe?
So the issue was like this. In Vilna, they had success to some degree. In White Russia, not so much. The Alter Rebbe was a powerhouse, and all the Alter Rebbe's chassidim, they were powerhouses. And the Meskilim felt that if they could knock down the Alter Rebbe, then they can, they will conquer White Russia. They could turn White Russia to a capital of Haskalah. And a number of them came, and there's the Friedrich Rebbe has a long, it's almost like a little book on its own about Shimon HaKofer, Shimon the apostate, who was a big scholar, and he traveled to the Alter Rebbe. It's a long story. He was a master medactic.
The idea was to convince the Alter Rebbe that it's a good thing, and the Bochum should
The
go.
Alter Rebbe
What was
said-
the-
They didn't know exactly what the Alter Rebbe's.
He asked my question.
Vayecharad Yitzchak Charod Gedolah. How do you teach it? So Shimon tells the Alter Rebbe. Rashi brings two pshatim: either Gehenna opened up or that he trembled. So Alter Rebbe says, "Do you tell the kids the pshat about the trembling because of Gehenna?" So Shimon says, "I don't teach it to the kids. Gehenna, they don't really understand. It's a medrash, whatever." I learned pshat. Yitzchak trembled because he realized the mistake. So Alter Rebbe picked up his candle and he said, when someone says his name is XYZ and he says he comes from Vilna, but really his name is his real name, and he comes in, the Alter Rebbe says you should know Gehenna enters with you in the room, and you should know it is very real.
Wow.
The guy was so afraid, he runs out. The Friedrich Rebbe described the Chassidim, they caught him for a Yechidus tencel. They didn't know what happened. They grabbed him. He's trying to run for his life. They're really dancing with him. Anyhow, but they were coming to spy, to see what's going on there, to figure out how to undermine. And they were extremely happy when Alter Rebbe was arrested. You could be sure that they were involved. They were involved. Yeah, for sure. To them, this was this was the major victory. Anyhow, so the Alter Rebbe, he suffered from goyim, maskilim, misnagdim. That we for sure. Before the Tanya was printed, it was being circulated as manuscripts, and the misnagdim were forging horrible forgeries. They showed the Vilna Gaon one of these copies which said horrific statements. The Vilna Gaon said it has to be burnt, and they burnt the Tanya. That Tanya Taka needed to be burnt, but you can imagine if Vilna Gaon burnt the Tanya, imagine. So we know Bechlal, the Misnagdim, they were roidif the Chassidim horribly. The Friedrich Rebbe describes a whole story that happened a little later in a city called Shvensian, where a number of Chassidim were murdered at the hands of Misnagdim. Because Misnagdim, it starts off as a funny story. The ending isn't so humorous. But the Misnagdim wanted to make a cherem against the Chassidim in that town, and they chose a day, and they were all in the streets wearing black clothes and black candles. It was very solemn. And the Chassidim had a siyum sefer Torah that day. And they were dancing, and it started off as a joke, but the Litvishes were so incensed and angry that it got bloody, fistfights, and 4 Chassidim lost their lives on that day, died. Friedrich Rebbe writes somewhere that one of the Litvishes that was involved with the activities of that day later in life traveled deep into Russia for some reason, and he saw there a Jewish community. How's there a from community here? The Alter Rebbe had sent one of his Chassidim on Shlichus, Pasha, to make a Yiddish zone of that area, and his literature was so nispol, he wrote back to Vilna, and he said that you guys totally misjudged the Alter Rebbe, and he says those Chassidim, their blood's going to be on your head when you go to heaven, and a whole letter that he wrote. Anyhow, so the Alter Rebbe suffered from misnagdim, but the most anguish that he received was when he suffered from his own friends. There were 4 groups, and the worst was from his own chaverim. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Talmidei Hamagid. So originally the Alter Rebbe was friends with all of them. The Alter Rebbe was one of the youngest students of the Magid. He, the Choiz of Lublin, the Kozhnitzer Magid, they were the youngest ones. There were older ones. There were those that had already been by the Baal Shem Tov before. Nachum Shenobler, Mendel Horedoker, Aaron Karliner, they were the older ones. Pinchas Baal Haflor, Reb Shmelke, the 2 brothers, they weren't by the Baal Shem Tov, but they were also from the older students. They were older than the Alter Rebbe. Noam Elimelech? Yes, and Reb Zusha, yeah. They were also. The Noam Elimelech was much older than the Alter Rebbe, yeah. The Noam Elimelech actually passed away in many years. Yes, he was still alive by the Tanya. Rebbe Elimelech passed away, I think, in Mem Zion in 1787. Alter Rebbe passes away 25 years later. So originally the Alter Rebbe was good friends with all of them. However, things changed. After the Magid passed away, it was Yutes Kislev, 1772. The Alter Rebbe wrote a letter to the Magid of Mizritch's son.
A few years after that, you said Mem Zion.
87, yeah.
So he passed
The Alter Rebbe 1812.
No, the Magid. The
Magid passed away in 72. Yeah, he only outlived the Magid 15 years. Yeah. So, after the Magid passed away, the Alter Rebbe wrote a letter to the Magid's son, Avram the Malach. The Alter Rebbe wrote it with 2 other people, with Reb Zusha of Anapola and Yehuda Leib HaKoyen. They were the Alter Rebbe's friends throughout. Ultimately, they're going to give a Haskam on the Tanya. And the 3 of them wrote a letter to the Magid's son called the Ksav Hiskashrus. We are asking you to take the seat, to take the helm. The Malach refused. He didn't want. So Alter Rebbe began to travel to the Mendel Horedoker. That only lasted a few years because Mendel Horedoker ultimately goes to Eretz Yisrael. So the Alter Rebbe now he begins, it was in 1777. It's 5 years after the Magid passed away. The Alter Rebbe now starts his own shop, but it's interesting. The Alter Rebbe never allowed anyone to call him Kvoid Kedushas while Mendel Horedoker was still alive in Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't for another decade after the Mendel passed away when the Alter Rebbe allowed people to call him Rebbe. As time went on, the Alter Rebbe developed his path of teaching Chassidus Chabad. And he said, open Mamorim, discussing in Yonim of Kabbalah, Zoyer, writings of the Arizal, deep in Yonim of Kabbalah. None of his friends did that. His friends, they all had their own course. You see, when Reb Mendel Horedoker went to Eretz Yisrael, there was a massive meeting. The Friedrich Rebbe describes in the article, there was a massive meeting. And we had a shir for allowed to do that. And there was a mass meeting where they divided and allocated each of the Magid students to a different territory. That's your place. Teach Chassidus as you feel. That's your area. Everyone got their shlichus, right? And the Alter Rebbe was given a very large area, White Russia, Lithuania, but not today's Ukraine or Poland or any of that, but the little bit north. The Alter Rebbe was given a large area. And the Alter Rebbe develops his teaching of Chassidus. What did his contemporaries do? The Alter Rebbe's contemporaries, they also taught Torah. Very cryptic. Their Chassidus was short, nice small little doses, little ideas. They got their Chassidim excited emotionally. The Alter Rebbe wanted his Chassidim to excite themselves intellectually. We're going to see more about this as we learn, but let me just say it in the following.
Chagas. No, that's Chagas.
Yeah, we're gonna see. You know what? Okay.
Connect to me, I'll take care of it.
No, okay, yeah. You know what? Let's read. Now, let's see the Friedrich Rebbe describe it himself in number 4. Why do you have to hear it from me? Hear it in number 4. But it's all. We're going to see lots and lots of stories tonight because that's just how all of this history is uncovered. 4. We'll come back to 3 soon. 4 is Likutei Deburim. So the Friedrich Rebbe Sichos. The Friedrich Rebbe is discussing one of the great students of the Maggid that disagreed with the Alter Rebbe's teaching of Chassidus. What you should know is the Baal Shem Tov had a Chavraya Kadisha, a holy assembly of students, 60 of them. Thousands of students, Chassidim, but 60 made up this special, unique group. The Maggid had twice the size, 120. The Friedrich Rebbe says in one place that from the 120, only 12 of them supported the Alter Rebbe in Chassidus Chabad.
60. What's 100?
The Baal Shem Tov's group of students was 60. The Maggid of Mezritch's group, 120.
Like exclusive guys.
Yeah. The Maggid had thousands and thousands of people visiting him. But in order to be part of this group, you had to have some level of Ruach HaKodesh. You're talking about Tzadikim Gedolim. Each one was real Rebbe material. The original Rebbes, You're talking about the biggest people, all the names we said before were amongst them. Aaron Kaliner, Mendel Horodok. You're talking about huge giants of the spirit.
This is the story that the little Rebbe fainted.
When Shlomo Kaliner gave a curse, was Makalal, Gesholten. Yeah. So that's actually connected to the story here, but a different part. This is a long story, number 4. But only 12 out of the 120 supported the Alter Rebbe. That means 107 of them did not support. In different variations, there were those that came out openly against, those that were more quiet, those that said nothing, just didn't support. There were only 12 that the Alter Rebbe could count on.
Some of them that wanted the Alter Rebbe to agree to put the Cherem.
Yes, that's Nachama, yeah. And the Alter Rebbe didn't want, so that's why Shlomo Kaliner hat him gescholten.
That's what Shlomo Kaliner
Gescholten, then the gefallen after Moshe, after Zun, yeah. So here we go. This Reb Shlomo Kaliner is one of those that originally, and he and the Alter Rebbe were close. Then he vehemently, firmly disagreed with Chassidus Chabad. What's interesting is he and the Alter Rebbe remained close even after that. Some of the other people we're going to see had, unfortunately, more of a pirud. Reb Shlomo Kaliner and the Alter Rebbe still remained buddies. The Shlomo Kaliner visits the Alter Rebbe, even though Shlomo cursed him, and even somehow, with all that, there was still a tremendous respect, and there was a certain kid of a certain closeness. But look what happened in number 4.
Aaron's brother?
Aaron's student. He's a student of Aaron. Reb Shlomo Kaliner was a student of Aaron Kaliner. Aaron Kaliner died young, in his 30s, 36. I think you're mishpacha with him, right? Because it's Tzemach Tzedek's father, Shalom Shachna, after Dvar Leah passed away, he married either the daughter or the granddaughter of Aaron Kaliner. In one place it says the daughter of Aaron Kaliner, Rivka, and the Rebbe says they used to call her Rivale. But I saw in another place it was actually a granddaughter, but either way. Somehow, yeah, that's when you're anical from that. It's interesting because Shlomo Kaliner. Fine, that's okay. Let's leave that. So, what happened was like this. The story here in number 4 is that Shlomo Kaliner wanted a certain area of the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe had a big area where he was the Rebbe. Shlomo said a certain city that he used to visit years before. Exactly. No, right. Shlomo said, listen, I used to visit Beshnikovich years ago. You now have been given that piece of land, but I have my old friends from there. Can I go there? So the Alter Rebbe said, okay, 3 conditions. Look at number 4. The Alter Rebbe had maskim given. He told Reb Shlomo, okay, this story happened in the early 1780s. You want to come? Okay. Nor had gestellt some 3 conditions, to which Harav Tzaddik Rav Shlomo zol nemen afstich that he should accept. Aleph, soll nicht mevatel sein, die Lomdim und Charifim in Limud HaNigla. Reb Shlomo used to make fun of the great Misnagdim, as scholarly as sharp as they were, but Reb Shlomo would, pull the rug from underneath them. If you don't learn Chassidus, he would harass you. The Alter Rebbe said you have to stop doing that. Number 2, soll nicht mevatel sein, die was seinem Bale Yiras Shamayim Tivis. People that are naturally frum and don't work on that. They're just naturally, that's how they grew up, and he used to harass them too. You got to work on it. The Alter Rebbe said you got to stop that. Number 3, soll kaveya sein, he should be kaveya by seinem mekusharim. Reb Shlomo needs to ask from his mekusharim, die choyves hayegiya b'avodas Hashem. You have to toil in service of Hashem, or nidvi di shita, not like the opinion, as diva seinem mekusharim la'atzadik, sein sich beteach b'avodas atzadik. Reb Shlomo Kalina, the Friedrich will say soon, he was the proponent that the tzaddik should learn the deep secrets of Kabbalah. The tzaddik then is infused with that energy, and when the chassid is makusha to the tzaddik, then it gets passed over to the chassid as well. Exactly. He was the one that said, the pasuk in Habakkuk says, tzaddik be'emunaso yichya, tzaddik lives in his belief. Reb Shlomo Kalina said, don't read yichya, rather yichaya. He gives off his chayas to the students. So the Alter Rebbe said, not like the shita, that those that are makusha to the tzaddik, they trust in the tzaddik, as the tzaddik vetzei mailas, and the tzaddik will elevate them with his avodah. No, that he, Rav Tzaddik, Reb Shlomo, zol legen achoiv, you have to demand from your makusharim, they sollen sich oisig sein, they should involve themselves b'yegiyas basar v'nefesh, toil of the flesh, toil of the soul, b'yediyas sichlis, in learning, contemplating, understanding, and avoid of the heart. Was das is be'emes the hefresh klali between Chassidus Volin or Polen and Chassidus Chabad. The Alter Rebbe hat meyasid given the derech avoida with the avoid of the mind and the avoid of the heart. As jeder einer, everyone according to his level, needs and must alein horeven. You have to toil. There's no shortcuts with the yigiyah of flesh and yigiyah of the soul of asoga likus to understand godly concepts. Und soll also viel vereinzigt werden mit den Indien, and the godly idea you're studying should become so absorbed in your mind, bis es soll der Herr werden in Herzen, that it should stir your heart. And the ispilus halev soll kommen tzad asogas hamayach. The love and fear you have should be from what you understand, not as a gift from an outside source that your Rebbe gives you. It should be self-grown, self-born. So it says the Friedrich Rebbe, you won't believe it? Reb Shlomo was maskim given not after the erste zwei tanoim. The first 2 conditions Alter Rebbe set out, Reb Shlomo said, Amen. So, okay, I won't harass the misnagdim. I won't harass people that are naturally from. On the dritten Tanaya, but on the 3rd condition, hat nit maskim when he said no. Sein shit is given, his shit was, as die welche seine mekusharim al tzadik, the chassid attaches to the tzaddik, they are uplifted through the avoid of the tzaddik. Die mekusharim darfen nur stehen in a starkes eirus. What's demanded from the chassidim is they need to have their hearts and minds opened. In kiyum atorah v'mitzvos, they should try and excite themselves as well, and excite themselves in learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, be mekusha to the tzaddik, and the tzaddik will vetzei baleben, the tzaddik will inspire them. Umargola bepume, it was constantly in his mouth of Rav Tzaddik, Rav Shlomo, he would say, first of all, al binoscha al tishoin. It says in Pirkei Avos, don't rely on your understanding. Don't get yourself involved with things you can't grasp. So for the average person, don't learn deep concepts of Chassidus. That's Rav Shlomo. The tzaddik be'munaseh, with his emunah, ubedveikuseh, with his cleaves to Hashem, yechaya, he'll be mechayas kol ha'mekusharim eil, of those that are mekusha to him. So that was Shlomo Kaliner. And it's interesting, the other conditions Alter Rebbe said he's ready to take, but not this one. This one is not willing to budge. A, he felt it's not necessary for the regular person. B, he felt it might be damaging and dangerous. What if someone doesn't understand properly? You end up having a Kabbalah center. And therefore, better without it. the tzaddik is pure. If the chassid is attached to the tzaddik, he'll get pure energy from the tzaddik. So that was Reb Shlomo Karliner, and and the Frierdiker Rebbe says that represented everyone pretty much besides for the Alter Rebbe. There happens to be a well-known story that the Alter Rebbe had a chassid who once came to the Alter Rebbe and complained, Yechidus, and he's complaining. And he says, Rebbe, I was traveling, I was in a hotel somewhere with and there was another business guy, another guy traveling, who was a chassid of Reb Chaikel of Amdur. Reb Chaikel of Amdur was a contemporary of the Alter Rebbe, a very special man. And I think he and the Alter Rebbe had a good relationship. And this chassid of Reb Chaikel was together in the room davening with this chassid of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe's chassid is trying to get it going. The davening is kalt. He's spacing out. It's hard to concentrate. Doesn't feel anything. And Reb Chaikel's chassid, this guy's face was burning.
Right.
This mamash. And the Alter Rebbe's chassid felt like, I toil, I learn chassidus, and what I have to show for it? Garnish, my davening is dead. And this guy's in the heavens. So he came to the Alter Rebbe and Yechidus, he says, Rebbe, I don't get it, what's going on? So Alter Rebbe told him, the guy you saw davening, it wasn't him davening. It was Reb Chaikel davening. It was his Rebbe davening through him. You saw the guy flying, wasn't him. It was his Rebbe who took him up there. Maybe your davening taka was missing some fire. But the little bit of emes that you had in your davening is yours. The couple times you were able to concentrate, the little sparks you felt, those are your sparks. His fire was greater. It wasn't his. There's a statement in Hayom Yom that Tzemach Tzedek once said, Hecherer is as menemt bam hantum and firt. When the tzaddik holds you by the hand and takes you, you could reach higher. But what's more precious is if it's done on your own. Tirer is if it's b'koyach atzma, you do it. So taka, when the tzaddik takes you, you can reach very high levels, but it's not you. It's not you. It's like someone doing the professional high jump versus going on a plane. She went on a plane. It's not you. It's not you. The high jump did what? 2.5 meters. But it's, I don't know. I just came up with that. You like it or not? But that's the idea. That's the idea of this story. That this chassid, Reb Chaikel's chassid taka, had a fire burning, but it wasn't his. Reb Chaikel davened through him. I remember hearing the story from Rabbi Yoel Khan, but I saw it's in Sfarim as well. It's in Sfarim as well, and this is the idea. This is the idea of Reb Shlomo Karliner, and what?
He had a lot of chassidim.
Reb Shlomo had lots of chassidim. He was Karlin, then became known as Karlin Stolin, because Reb Aaron Karliner had a son, Reb Osher, who was Reb Osher of Stolin. So the Karlin Stolin,
Dynasty.
it's still called today Karlin Stolin. It's known that when they daven, they scream. When I was 14 and my father shipped me out of Australia, I went to learn in yeshiva in Monsey. There was a great Chabad yeshiva. It's not there anymore. It was gewaldig. We had fantastic mashpiyim. It was fantastic. We used to learn in a Karliner-based medrash. So during the week we were there. Shabbos, we had to go downstairs into the basement because our zal was their shul. You could hear them davening, telling them the room would shake. They would scream. Man, when they daven, they scream. Now it's interesting like this. In Ruzhin, Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin was shash still. When he davened, you could hear a pin drop. Once some Karliner Chassidim came, and they were bellowing. So the Ruzhiner says, "You want to scream, Mele, or bestillerheit? Scream, but quietly." That's what the Ruzhiner said. Zal schreien, aber bestillerheit. But obviously, it's funny, but he obviously meant something. There's obviously an Indian there.
You want to cry.
Right, you can scream, but in your heart.
For real.
Yes, like whoever says
For real.
Amen Yehesh
Where
Meid
are they
Abba
centered
B'chol.
now?
What?
Where are these chassidim centered now?
So there's a big thing in Monsey, I'm sure, in Eretz Yisrael, and
Ever.
I don't know. I don't know. They must have something. Anyhow, so this debate between the Alter Rebbe and his Koz led to another debate. Is there an inyan to koch in miracles? Is there an inyan to koch in miracles? Reb Shlomo Karliner and the other Rebbe said, fakert, the Rebbe needs to make a point of doing miracles in front of the Chassidim, and the Chassidim need to talk about it and koch in it, because that's how they see God. The way that their revelation of God is through the tzaddik. What better way is if a tzaddik can change nature in front of their eyes? And they talk about it, they live with it. That's how the Rebbe is opening up their eyes. It's not them, it's the Rebbe doing it. But there's no better way than the physical eyes should actually see.
Also making them more makusher.
I'm a little confused. When we went to Shiva, they told us he's skashus and whatever. That's the most important thing.
We're going to get there.
Which is
I have it coming up.
It does, but I see it
There was no.
reconciled. It's very
Everything
easy to be
else is
reconciled.
tough.
Okay. Detroit? Really? Okay. Oh, say.
So
No, hold on. Hold on. I have.
It's not
We're
like
going to
I
get
was in
there.
the Karliner.
the Karlin Stoliner, their main place is in a place called Givat Zev in Yerushalayim. Their Rebbe
In
is
America.
Meir Yaakov Shochat.
Shochat.
Karliner Rebbe.
No.
No, but in
They
America,
also have
Muncie's.
Bnei Brak, Kiryat Sofer, Brachfeld, Safed, Tzfas, Tveria, as well as in the United States, Borough Park, Brooklyn, Muncie, Los Angeles,
And later you
Los
go-
Angeles.
New Jersey.
Later we can go and
And
Yeah.
North
Bring
Miami
the
Beach,
Belarus.
and North
One
Miami
second.
Beach in the.
Shochat has
in the
16 children, 9 sons and 7 daughters, all married.
That's the Rebbe, Shachat?
Yeah.
Chai.
So I guess all his kids are taking a portion of their.
Chaim Karliner. Son, we're gonna rebrand.
Shochat. I wonder what family.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mashenkin by the Alter Rebbe, miracles was not a big thing at all, because the Alter Rebbe wanted that the inspiration of the Chassid should not come from an outside source. It has to be self-developed from your own, your own mind, your own understanding. You study the greatness of the Eibishter, you will feel.
no such thing.
It'll open
as
up your
a
heart.
melange.
But start kochzich in miracles, it defeats the purpose. So this takes us to number 5. I'll come back to number 3 in a moment. Number 5 is a letter that the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to the Rebbe. Written, it's in Hatamim. In the second, Hatamim was right before the Holocaust. It was a periodical. How do they call it? It came out from every couple months. I did it for a few years. In it, it was thick. It was a real chayveres. I can't remember the English word, but either way, in it, yeah. There's in it.
Whatever.
There's
A notebook.
no, there's a word that when anybody either way.
Diary or something, not really, whatever.
Okay, so in it, there's the Frierdiker Rebbe would publish letters that have never been published from him, from earlier Rebbes. They would pull him in Nigla and Chassidus, lots of good, juicy, beautiful stuff, mamish beautiful stuff. So in it, this letter was printed. It says the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to one of his sons-in-law, but it's known that it was to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe asked about what's the deal with miracles. L'chayr, the Polish that koch in miracles is closer to the path of the Baal Shem Tov. That was the Rebbe's question. Baal Shem Tov is known. The Baal Shem Tov is a miracle man, right? So l'chayr, the fact that they koch in it seems to be closer to the Baal Shem Tov's to the original path of Chassidus. So the Frierdiker Rebbe is a long letter, stories, ideas. It's beautiful. In it, the Frierdiker Rebbe says the following story. Number 5, fascinating story. Shamati, says the Frierdiker Rebbe to the Rebbe, I heard. Pam echad, it once happened, limud da'ach, asher lomad harav tzadik hachosed Rebbe Leib of Terkish. Rebbe Leib of Terkish was a chosed of the Alter Rebbe in Mohilov, in Mogelov. This Rebbe Leib was a mashpia. He taught Chassidus, Chabad, to those that wanted to learn, and a very successful mashpia, Gor Chassidus, one of the big Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. His Hoyer Avrech Echad, there was a certain younger man, Baal Kishron, a clever fellow, and this guy, he stabik belimud da'ach. He once came to a shiur of this Rebbe Leib, and boom, he fell in love with Chassidus Chabad. Kaver Ezer's man, a little time passes, he starts davening bariches, he becomes a full-on Chabad Chassid. He's wearing the kapote, he has the smashed hat, he's a Chabad. This is in the times of the Alter Rebbe. Chavrei ha'avrech, now his friends, u'bnei Giloi, his friends, classmates, were Chassidim of Admurei Volin. They were Chassidim of other Polish Rebbes. Konubai, they were jealous. Because their Rebbes didn't let them learn Chassidus. Ube'echad ha'moedim l'simcha one yom tov, beisa fabrengen, the friend said to this Avrech, ha'admur shalcha hu bevadei godol v'nera. Your Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, is taka very great. Aber a meifes, a wonder, das kriegt man bei unser Rebbe. That you get by us. They were jealous of him that he was learning Chassidus Chabad. They weren't allowed. But they said, we have one up on you. The miracles our Rebbe performs, you don't have that by the Alter Rebbe. Now this guy wasn't a born Lubavitcher, wasn't a born Chabadnik. He was a Zugerkummener, this guy. And these were his old friends. And their comment really was, Hadibur hazet tzires ha'avrech b'ma'id. It really got to him. He thought maybe the Alter Rebbe doesn't do miracles because he doesn't have the potential to do so. Meshech zman ma, a little while, he was wondering, should I discuss this with Rabbi Yehuda Leib, imlav or not? Should I discuss with the mashpia? On the one hand, he was probably embarrassed, right, to tell him this Alter Rebbe had the power to do a miracle. On the other hand, it was eating him up. Weeks passed, 2 or 3, and he decided, I'm not telling him anything. I don't want to. He was embarrassed to ask Rabbi Yehuda Leib, but he had Tsar Godel. The younger man was very pained. In the meantime, ba meshulach m'Rabbeinu hagadol, shahoy lichmois. Whatever the Shatav, it says the money that the Alter Rebbe took responsibility to send money to the Chassidish families that went to Eretz Yisrael. Anyhow, ubiyod, in this guy's hand, he had a letter from the Alter Rebbe to the Chassid of Yehuda Haleib. B'mayne, answer al yediyah shekasav loy oides hadrochas avrechem. You see, Rabbi Yehuda Leib would send letters to the Alter Rebbe. I'm learning with this guy, and this is where he's holding, this is what's happening with him. So the Alter Rebbe would respond. And Bein Hatshuvas, among the responses of the Alter Rebbe, was a response about this younger man. Now, the younger man never told the Mashpia Yehuda Leib what was on his mind. But the Alter Rebbe tells Yehuda Leib, Ro'ui lekarva, you should be mekarv the guy. Tzrichim lahapik tzara, you have to remove his pain. And this will be loy la'ois lacherim lamoifis. This will be to him a sign, to others a wonder. A very cute response. This guy, the younger man, was wondering, does Alter Rebbe have Ruach HaKodesh? So the Alter Rebbe wrote to the Mashpia, I want you to speak to the younger man about why in Lubavitch we don't koch in Moifsim, but ultimately he'll get his Moifis, because he'll see that I read his mind. So, Kishmeya ha'avrich, when the younger man heard Mipi Madrichi from his Madrich, the Mashpia, what the Alter Rebbe wrote, and the Yehuda Leib has no idea. He asked the younger man, what's this, the Alter Rebbe, what is this? The guy starts to cry. So Yehuda Leib asks him, Matabach, what are you crying for? And he told him, Kol HaSicha, the whole discussion he had with him and his friends. And V'yomele Rav Tzadik HaChassid Haril Nishpas, and Yehuda Leib explained, now I understand the words of the Alter Rebbe. And he told the younger man, you know what the biggest miracle is? Amazon machen von a ploche a Menschen. The fact that I made from you a piece of wood into a mensch, that's the biggest. That's the biggest miracle. That's the biggest miracle. But the Alter Rebbe, very poetic, he said, I want you to explain to him what our opinion is about miracles, but B'Poyel, he'll get his miracle too. So you see from here that in Chassidus Chabad, it wasn't a thing. They said by the Mittler Rebbe there were miracles, dancing under the table. No one bothered to pick them up. Because it was counter the whole what Chassidus Chabad was about. The inspiration has to be self-created through his his contemplation. Think about it, realize it's good, and then you'll be attracted towards it. Miracles, that's the Rebbe, that's an outside source elevating you. Okay. So this is the debate of the Alter Rebbe versus his friends. The Alter Rebbe said everyone should learn their own Chassidus, break their heads, contemplate, create their own emotions. His friends said no. They get elevated through the tzaddik. That's why they should koch in miracles. Okay. There is a certain individual who originally was one of the Alter Rebbe's closest friends. And he became an antagonist to the Alter Rebbe's path of Chassidus Chabad, and it caused the Alter Rebbe tremendous pain. You see, Rav Shlomo Kaliner, they kind of agreed to disagree, Seder. But with the other fellow, the other tzaddik, Avram Kalisker, Avram from the city of Kalisk, he was originally a student of the Vilna Gaon. He was a brilliant mind. He comes to the Maggid of Mizrich, and he and the Alter Rebbe kicked it off. The two of them used to travel. There's a story, the two of them went to Shklov to debate the Misnagdim when they were younger. The Misnagdim were angered. They locked them up in a cellar somewhere, and the two of them they broke the wall, they dug out, and they ran. They had lots of adventures together. To the point that Avram Kalisker, it's known that he would belittle Misnagdim like there's no tomorrow, and the Misnagdim were incensed. The Maggid heard about Avram Kalisker's extreme ways, and Avram Kalisker was almost banished from Mizrich. The Alter Rebbe traveled to the Maggid and defended his friend, and he restored peace. Avram Kalisker and Alter Rebbe were buddy buds. When Avram Kalisker he went to Eretz Yisrael with Reb Mendel Hodadoka 4 or 5 years after the Maggid passed away. The Alter Rebbe took upon himself to support the families. This was his Rebbe, Reb Mendel, his best friend Avram Kalisker. The Alter Rebbe would send money, and they were close friends.
That was allegedly why he was arrested.
Yeah, part of the reason, right. The Tolkish Shirtan. To show you how close they were, look at number 3. We have a letter from Avram Kalisker. This is printed. Look at the date, number 3, Menachem of Tov Kuf Nun Beis. This is 1792. It's before Tanya comes out. But Avram Kalisker is already in Yisrael for 15 years. I mean, this is already well into their lives. He's writing it to the Kohala Kadisha Borisov. He's writing it from Tveria. In number 3, Tomia li alov, he says, I'm wondering to whoever he's writing to, Al hichreichoi love b'shalas nafshoi. You had to come and ask questions for your soul, v'rav machsorin, for whatever you're missing. Lishol eitzes merochat, you're asking questions all the way to here, to Eretz Yisrael. You don't have to send a mail across the world. Haloi shom lefon of rabim gedoy l'chakri lev. In front of you, there's big people who can investigate the heart. Emes atzosam, b'dvar Hashem yimtza, their eitzah is true, etc. And then he says, Befrat, Godol ha'etzah, the greatest of all advisors, Harav ha'mafursim, the famous, the holy one, Ahuvi, the one that I love, Kvoid Meshner Zalman, Ner Yisrael. Ki Yosim Pamav, you should go to him. Avram Kalisker is telling his chassid, he coming to me? Go to the Alter Rebbe. Shom Yimtza Margoya L'Nafshe. There you will find peace for your soul. B'chol Machsere, whatever it might be that you're lacking. And he says, you might be far from the Alter Rebbe. If something is difficult for you, feel like your soul is lacking, it's not far to travel to the Alter Rebbe, even to go over mountains. You have to go to the Alter Rebbe. He was a big fan, as you see, a big fan.
Who is that?
Avram Kalisker.
I guess so.
Später. After Tanya. Tanya comes out 4 or 5 years later. And Kohen. Kalisker is the city he was from. Kohen Tzedek, yeah.
The Rebbe wrote a letter to Kalisker that he saved him. Because
the Maggid hat ihm gewollt Yep. So, what happened with Avram Kalisker? It was after Tanya. When Tanya came out, Avram Kalisker got a copy and he said, whoa. He said, the Alter Rebbe has gone overboard over here.
You got a legitimate copy?
Legitimate copy? Yeah. And he the issue, the copy they showed, the Vilna Gaon had Apikrisis in it. The Avram Kalisker wasn't worried about what was written was wrong. Fakir, it was too high. He said, you can't, this is not for the random people.
Secrets.
Yeah, they're going to misunderstand. Who knows what type of conclusions. Lots of ideas in Tanya, very delicate spiritual topics. They're not for every person to chew over themselves.
You also made the argument that the Maggid never taught it.
So, look on the next page. We have the letters actually they're printed, the letters that Avram Kalisker wrote. One particular letter he wrote to the Barditchever. And he claims in the letter that the Alter Rebbe broke away from the Maggid. It's a new path. It's not what the Maggid taught. It's not what the Mendel Horodoker taught. And the Alter Rebbe is choosing his own path, and he was very upset.
Who was that?
Avram Kalisker. Avram Kalisker. Gesagt auf den alten Rebben, also geht nicht auf den Derech von Maggid. Geschrieben zum Barditchever.
Oh, the Barditchever, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So the Barditchever wrote a letter back that I have in the paper. I didn't want to write Avram Kalisker's letter. You know, you don't have to read.
Where are these letters printed?
This is in. There's a sefer, Letters of the Alter Rebbe. It's a standalone sefer. In the back, they have
Igris or
Igris. Yeah. They have letters of Avram Kalisker, and they have this letter that I got in number 7, printed from there. Right. I will tell you that there was one incident that really shook things up. The Alter Rebbe had a chassid, Elazar Disner, I think his name was. He traveled to Eretz Yisrael. Now, from Russia to Eretz Yisrael was a big trip in those days. He came to Eretz Yisrael, and he loved the Alter Rebbe's chassidus. Now he's by Avram Kalisker. He listens to the chassidus. He doesn't like it. That's not what he's used to. He's used to breadth and depth, and he tells Avram Kalisker, I'm going back to Russia for the Mamor. He's going to pick himself up, go back to Russia because of the Mamorim. So Avram Kalisker was upset. The story is mostly recorded in the Sefer Beis Rebbe, and right before he left, he came into Yechidus to say goodbye to Avram Kalisker. He says, "You're leaving? Between Eretz Yisrael," he says, "between here and Russia, you're gonna have to cross the ocean. Maybe it's the Black Sea. You're gonna have to cross the water
to Turkey, no?
Yeah.
Go like that way.
You have to cross the water," meaning he was warning him. So he tells back, "I'm not scared. I have a Rebbe who's going to protect me." Now, that was a big shtech, and that definitely did not help the feelings. And Avram Kalisker wrote letters to a number of.
You made it back?
So Avram Kalisker, although there is a letter that he wrote later, Avram Kalisker wrote in the later years, where he seems to have backed off and said, what the Alter Rebbe is doing is right. But for many years, there was a huge divide. And we know that it pained the Alter Rebbe more than anything else.
What prompted it? Is it Tanya?
Tanya.
What particularly?
The fact that it's full of delicate inyanim of Kabbalah that the Maggid never said this is the Alter Rebbe wrote it for anyone. Any Tom and Harry can pick it up and start reading, and Imagine someone says, every single person should start learning Zohar. You'll have Kabbalah centers opening up everywhere. It's not going to be positive. And look, we know that this hurt the Alter Rebbe more than anything else. More than the Goyim opposing him, the Maskilim were Yidden. Above that was the Misnagdim, who were Fruma Yidden, Goyinim. Above that, the most painful were his own friends. And amongst that, Avram Kalisker. So look at number 7. This is that response the Barditchever wrote back to Avram Kalisker.
Well, we just
Nur 12 von den 120 haben geholfen der Alter Rebbe. Haben ihm Teumer gewinnt. Alle anderen seien gewinnt angegen.
Wer ist anders?
Baruch Mezhebush, Makalina, Mordechai Lechevich, the Alter Rebbe. We're going to get to him because tonight is yard site. Hold on. He was definitely negative. There's no question. But we'll see. Hold on. I have that. Hold on. So look at number 7. Hine Ma'asher. Entschuldig me. It's just
I'm not the Alter
you're not about
Hine Ma'asher. Ma'asher Misroim Ma'aloseh on the Geisov. You are up in arms against the conduct of the Alter Rebbe. V'aymer, you say, the Barditchever tells Avram Kalisker, it's not lefi the derech of the Maggid of Mezritch. She says, first of all, you forgot many clear Gemaras that la'achar ma'aseh ein ne'em lahad. You can't testify after the stories happened. You've already come out against the Alter Rebbe. Now your whole explanation is that we didn't see this. You can't testify after you're in the machlekes, right?
You already had it.
But he said, I wonder, how could Echial Das that you should complain on the Hanhogas of the Alter Rebbe? The Alter Rebbe is just continuing the path of the Magid. Kol Iskav of the Magid was to teach the people Torah and mitzvahs. And that's the Iker of Avodah, like we were Makabel from the Magid. The Hanhogad Alter Rebbe Gam Ken Al Derech Seh. What's he doing? He's teaching people Chassidus to learn and to daven. This is the Derech HaKodesh of the Torah. This is the path that light will dwell. Halavai mi yiten v'haya kol amay kulam sadikim sheyinegu kulam ken. The Badish says Halavai, all the Magid's Talmidim would be like the Alter Rebbe. He's a real defender, the Badish. Va'ad Rabbi says fakert. If you don't act like the Alter Rebbe, then you're the one departing from the Magid. And if you are up in arms, you're Misraim on this derech, you're Misraim on the Magid. Because the Iker Avodah v'Hanagos of Akdoshim, the Magid, was in the same path. I'm at a loss towards you. That you don't realize this. Yeah.
You're such a big chassid.
You were b'mana ito. You were close by the Magid. That what the Alter Rebbe is doing is strange. You didn't see this by the Magid.
So you were close with the Alter Rebbe, Eitzel Magid.
Itonu, b'mana itonu.
With the Alter Rebbe, or just
okay, everything b'chlal. But you soaked up the court of the Magid. You know what's going on over there. The Eis asher kasav Eli. This that you write to me. B'shem Hamanoyach, in the name of Menachem Mendel of Haradoker, that he was Yoker be'einei Moreinu, Hineazeh loy shamati.
What do you mean?
So there's two ways of reading this.
Haradoker was close to the Magid.
Haradoker had passed away years before this.
Right, no, maybe he was
Right.
against the Alter
But what's his
Rebbe.
point?
Is that what he's saying?
So the simple reading.
So
Hold on.
close to the Magid.
The simple.
He was insisting.
That he was more of a favorite.
The simple reading is.
Insisting that the Alter Rebbe should have made a Rosh.
Yeah.
And he went to Israel.
Yeah. The simple reading of this is that you are telling me that Reb Mendel Haradoka was precious in the eyes of the Magid. He says, "Ezeh loy
And
shmati."
not the Alter Rebbe.
The most precious student was Mendel Haradoka, so we should look to him to see what was the Magid's intention. So the Barditchva says, Ezeh lo shemati, I never heard that. I'll tell you what I do know. Ezeh ani made, what I could testify is, Shema'oid haya yoker kavoid harav mechotani, the guy in the Alter Rebbe, he was precious to the Magid ad ein shir, to no end. Vayamaflik oisei tamid ad ein shir moed, and the Magid was a tremendous fan of the Alter Rebbe. So the simple reading of this is, you're telling me Mendel Haradoka was the choicest of students. That I never heard. I'll tell you, I know the Alter Rebbe was.
Right.
However,
No, he's saying.
He was bringing him out.
no,
bringing
yeah,
it down.
that you should know. You should look at him to see what the
He
Magid's
passed
intention
away
was.
already.
Look at the
You
way
said
the
he
Mendel
passed away.
he passed, the Mendel outlives the Magid 15 years. During those 15 years,
Didn't
Mendel
do what
wasn't.
Alter Rebbe
Yeah, so the Chur, that's a
Sounds to
raya.
me
That's
something different.
yeah. There's
Sounds to me
a
like you're saying Alter Rebbe is such a big guy. He was a favorite Talmud. He says no, Mendel Haradoka was the favorite.
that's
So-
what Avram Kalisker is saying.
Right.
And the Barditchev is saying the opposite. Ezeh lo shamati, I didn't hear that Reb Mendel was particularly special. What I could testify is that the Alter Rebbe was particularly special. However, in the notes that they put on the new print, whoever writes it says that he saw somewhere that's not the pshat here. The pshat is Avram Kalisker said he heard something in the name of Reb Mendel, brackets, and Reb Mendel was precious to the Magid. The Barditchev says, what you're quoting from Reb Mendel I didn't hear. Okay, that's just
How did the
another.
last part go then? 'Cause he said-
No. In other words,
'cause
I
they said
didn't-
that Alter Rebbe's did.
exactly.
No,
No. When he says Zeh lo shamati, doesn't mean I didn't hear that Mendel was Yoker.
Yeah,
I didn't
that.
hear
So I
what you're
thought too,
quoting.
But then at the
Alter
end,
Rebbe
his-
wrote to Kaliska so that I save you.
Yeah.
Because the Mizrahi Magid wanted they should throw him out.
right.
Yeah.
And
Ve'es asher
Ve'es asher kosav shezeu.
I went with Mr. Nefesh to see you.
Right, yeah. Now,
You can come out now, I guess.
yeah, Alter was very pained. He says, "Mo'oi tomia be'enai." It's wondrous to me. It's man rav. You didn't write loy kosav elai shum dover mizeh. Ima emes ito. If the truth is, you should have written to me. I don't know what this is about. V'lichtov milsa b'taimer. Write something logical about what and why you're saying this. Lefi daiti. This is that what the Alter Rebbe is doing is the path of the Magid. This is the path that light will rest. Anoshim roim, bad people have brought lashon hara to you, and those people are ignorant. They're not Talmidei Chachamim, as I've seen them. They're passing on false information.
How were they related, Rebbe Levi Yitzchak?
And the Alter Rebbe, grandchildren married each other. So the Alter Rebbe himself once said about this taka. People passed on lashon hara to Avram Kalisker, and it kind of broke our relationship. And the Alter Rebbe said it's similar to David HaMelech and Shaul. The Alter Rebbe said the debate is similar to David and Shaul. Just like the Medrash says that people told Shaul stories about David and that caused him to be upset, so too over here. But Chassidim would say the Alter Rebbe meant something much deeper. Shaul was a Greisat Tzaddik, as was David. The debate between them wasn't just Shaul was worried David's going to usurp the kingdom. There was much deeper, there was a much more primistic debate going on. So Alter Rebbe was hinting to the same thing, that on the surface there's lashon hara, there's some, but there was a much deeper debate, a much more primistic debate, which surrounds the idea that the Alter Rebbe felt you got to teach Chassidus in the path of Chabad, and Avram Kalisker felt that it's not necessary, it's dangerous. In one of the letters, Avram Kalisker writes to the Barditcheva, Lav kol moiches savada, not every mind can understand the ideas properly. It's a kenshatan, it can cause a danger, it can be dangerous. Fine. Right. So Avram Kalisker very much hurt the Alter Rebbe. Yeah, I'll get there. There was two other people. So we had Shlomo Kalina, Avram Kalisker. There was the Apter Rebbe. The Apter Rebbe, Avram Yeshua Heschel of Apter, known as the Oyev Yisrael, the lover of Yisrael. He was a big, what?
Gerari, Zalman Gerari, something, the wife. Zalman
Yeah, Avram Yeshua Heschel, big Chassidish name.
They were...
Kapitznish.
But they had kids of that name.
Heschel, yeah. The last name is Heschel.
He was a great Chassidic Rebbe, but he had a major issue with Chassidus Chabad, and he was open about it. And there is a story.
Who is that?
The Apter Rav. The Apter Rav. You should know that once in the early years, somebody asked the Rebbe by Fabrengen a shaila on what the Apter Rav says in the Oyev Yisrael, and the Rebbe responds, "B'chlal is given on kegen the Alter Rebbe. I don't have to answer." But the Rebbe says you should know your question is not a question, and the Rebbe went to explain it anyways. He went to explain what the Apter Rebbe meant. But he threw in that I'm not mechuyev to answer. He was not a supporter of the Alter Rebbe. So there's a well-known story I have to say. The Mittel Rebbe decreed amongst his Chassidim that if you're traveling from town to town, you need to say Chassidus wherever you can. So the Mittel Rebbe had a Chassid, Yitzchak Moshe of Yassi, who was originally a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, one of the big guns in the early days of Chassidus. So he was by the Alter Rebbe, and he was also by the Mittel Rebbe. And he actually was hired by the Ruzhner to teach the Ruzhner's children. So one day, he ends up in a shul while he's traveling. He says a Maimer Chassidus. The Apter Rebbe walks in. He says, in my base medrash? You know what I think about Chassidus Chabad? You coming in my base medrash? He curses him, you won't live out the year. Chassid leaves. He thinks himself, I was doing the shlichus of the Mittel Rebbe. I'm untouchable. Comes home, he's teaching the Ruzhner's kids. His legs start to swell. He becomes bedridden, and he realized that this curse is serious business. So, there was a woman there who needed a bracha from the Mittel Rebbe. So this Yitzchak Moshe said, okay, I'll go on your behalf and I'll go for myself. He asked the Ruzhner, can I leave your kids for a few days while I go? So the Ruzhner apparently said, you have to bring me back some ksovim from the Mittler Rebbe. Some ksovim of the Mittler Rebbe. So Yitzchak Moshe went, and while he was traveling in the wagon, he sees in the distance on the side of the road an old man with a stick. And there were a few wagons passed by the old man, but he didn't ask any of them for a ride. His wagon comes, the old man starts calling out, I need a ride, I need a ride. She thinks, that's strange. Who is this guy? What does he want from me? I'm ill, I'm sick, I'm not... So he tells the wagon driver, we're not picking him up. The old man walks in the middle of the road, he starts waving his stick. I need a ride. So he tells the wagon driver, fast, around the guy. So they swerve, they're hitting the horses, going as fast as they can. And mitamo, this old man picks up his stick, he starts running. They're whacking the horses. And this is recorded in old sources. They're whacking the horses, but the old man was faster. He jumps on the wagon. This Yitzchak Moshe was ill, but he said, this guy's the angel of death. He picked up some like an old wagon, old wheel or something in the back. He gives the guy a clap, and the guy falls off the wagon, and they ride off. They ride off to the Mittler Rebbe. And he comes into Mittler Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, first he represents that woman who needed a bracha. He says, Rebbe, I'm pasha dying over here. I got a curse. What? Yeah, exactly. He's running after me. He's running after me. So the Mittler Rebbe said, what happened? He tells him the story. So the Mittler Rebbe said, you said a mimer in the Abter Rebbe's shul? He said, Rebbe, I had no idea he was there. Honest. So the Mittler Rebbe said, and when the Abter Rebbe came out, did you say anything offensive? He said, nothing. I did not. So Mittler Rebbe says, you'll live out the year. He says,
see this? You'll not lose anything.
He says, Wes euch leben die Jahr.
Seine Jahre und seine Kinder.
Oh, so he said, Rebbe, ich bin doch ein junger Mann. So Mittler Rebbe said, you'll outlive him also. But he's an old man. You'll outlive his kids. Then the Mittler Rebbe said, you'll outlive his Einiglich too. And this Yitzchak Moshe lived till he was 103 years old. Hold on, story's not done. So first he came back to the Ruzhner. So he told the Mittler Rebbe, the Ruzhner asked. The Ruzhner actually himself was a young man then. So Mittler Rebbe wrote, he used to write very fast. He wrote four different inyanim. And he gave it to him. And the guy, when Yitzchak Moshe comes back to the Ruzhner, he says the Ruzhner was, for some reason, he was standing like this. He gets the papers, didn't move. He reads one, he says, Klor. Next one, Lichtig. Third one, Kodesh. Fourth one, Kodesh Kadoshim. Yitzchak Moshe lives on till he's 103 years old. And he was lebedik, he was youthful, he's walking around. All of a sudden, he calls his family, he says, come to my room right now. They go to his room, he's lying in his bed. He tells them, it's time to, he tells them, he says, I'm going. They said, Tata, Zayda, what do you mean? You're healthy. He says, no. Reese, just before, earlier today, I was outside. And I saw someone trying to climb over our fence. It's like, who is that? And I saw the same old man with the walking stick. And I thought to myself, I'm not letting him kill me in the backyard. He says, I'm going to go to my room. You all protect me. If the Eibush wants to take me, let him take me. He closed his eyes and he died. That's Yitzchak Moshe of Yassi. Now here's the Pella. Look at number 9. This is Harav HaKodesh, the Baal Oyev Yisrael from Abta. This is the same Rebbe who gave the curse. He said like this, Gam Avoseinu Akdoshim Avram Yitzchak v'Yankiv went in the path of the Avodah written in Likutei Amarim, in Tanya. Kach Moiser Baal Chakal Yitzchak, Chassidish Rebbe, who has a tradition. What?
He wrote this after.
So when I saw this, I asked Rabbi Shapiro once. He said it can't be. It doesn't fit with the whole tradition. So my response was fakert. The Abter Rabbis didn't say that Tanya is incorrect. It's too high. It's for the others. It's for the others. It's not for the random people. That was the issue.
Well, did they pass it on after they did?
What?
Did they?
To the Shvatim, Bagreis Tzadikim. Oh, anyhow, so now we come to the Baruch of Mezhebush. Well, we're going to finish it up. Tonight's the Baruch of Mezhebush's yard site. And we're going to say there's so much to talk about, make it very quick. The Baruch was the Baal Shem Tov's grandson. The Baal Shem Tov had a daughter, Adel. She had 3 kids. The Baruch, an older brother, Moshe Chaim Ephraim of Sadulkov, the Degel Machen Ephraim. I come from him.
He's buried right next to the Baal Shem Tov.
The Baruch is, and
also
you were there, you saw it. And there was a third child, Fega, who was the mother of Nachman of Breslov.
Wow.
And
by the way, Nachman's brother is also buried over there.
oh,
Right
okay.
outside. His name is Yisrael.
Did you go to Reb Nachman?
No.
Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah to Uman. What is Elul? Ani le'uman v'ishti la.
I don't have payas for him to shut me out of,
Anyhow, so the Baruch,
You see an old guy running around outside.
when the Baruch was a couple years old when the Baal Shem Tov passed away, there was a tradition that the Baal Shem Tov told 2 of his students. This is not a tradition in Chabad sources. In Polish sources, they have a tradition going back that the Baal Shem Tov told 2 of his greatest students, Reb Pinchas of Koretz and Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polnar. The Baal Shem Tov said, my Einikal little Baruch, I want him to be at the helm when he's ready. Reb Baruch definitely believed that. And in fact, later on, he once told the Alter Rebbe, when he was having his debates, the Alter Rebbe, I'm the blood of the Baal Shem Tov. I'm the blood of the Baal Shem Tov. So Alter Rebbe told him, Du bist doch a gashmistika Einikal. You're a physical, you have his blood. I have his essence. Because I took the essence of the Maggid took the essence of the Baal Shem Tov. You have his... Baruch was younger than the Alter Rebbe. Yeah, younger than the Alter Rebbe.
He was a grandson of who again?
The Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov's daughter's son was him. He spent a bit of time by the Maggid. He considered himself a continuation to the Baal Shem Tov.
Even before the Maggid.
He was 3 years old, according to someone, his Zayda passed away. And the Maggid was only a Rebbe for 12 years. So it didn't really come up.
Really
He wasn't going to rebel against the Maggid. He was young. But after the Maggid passed, he did Derei Zich when he was a young guy by the Maggid. He also Derei Zich by the Pinchas of Koretz, by the Wolf Kitzis, the Baal Shem Tov student Wolf Kitzis, by some others. Reb Baruch and the Alter Rebbe had an interesting relationship. There was always a bit of... Reb Baruch recognized the greatness of the Alter Rebbe, but Reb Baruch did really feel that he was the hemshech of the Baal Shem Tov. So you can imagine that already would create some... Yeah, and then it's spiritual in Yonim, but you could even see Begashmias. So... No. Gashmis. Ich bin Beruchnis. Yeah. So after Tanya came out, Reb Baruch actually was a big fan of Tanya. This is interesting. Reb Baruch was a fan of Tanya. He said it's a sefer of seichel. It's intellectual sefer. So when did it go south? After Yutis Kislev, the Alter Rebbe came out. Noch Peterburg. After Peterburg, the Giluyim were much greater. But even then, Reb Baruch still didn't come out. It was after the Alter Rebbe came out of jail a second time. 2 years after the first Yutis Kislev, the Alter Rebbe was in jail again. When he came out the second time, he was legally forced to move from Liozna to Liadi. And then Chassidus took on a whole new... And then Reb Baruch it was Dafka later on. Tanya Baruch was happy with, but things got mamash out of hand later in Reb Baruch's eyes. The Chassidus was way too expansive and expounded upon. And then Reb Baruch heard the Alter Rebbe's daughter, Rebbeson Freda, was saying Mamorim. And that... So the Alter Rebbe once met up with Reb Baruch. He said, what do you want from me? I sat in jail 53 days because of your Zayda. Do you know how many issues the government was asking me, Baal Shem Tov? I should have told him, what do you want from me? The Baal Shem Tov is the Einikal, go grab him. You could have sat in jail. Reb Baruch said, me? I wouldn't have sat in jail. I would have gone like this and they would all disappeared. So Alter Rebbe said in this week's Parasha in Vayishlach, Yankov is worried for Esav and his 400 men. Yankov could have gone like this and boom, they'd all disappeared. Elamai, that's not how you do it. It's not about breaking the world, it's working with the world. So, I got to tell you one story of Reb Baruch. We'll finish up next 4 or 5 minutes. So Reb Baruch definitely had an issue with the Alter Rebbe, but it only started later. So that might be what you said. The Apter Rebbe Tanya was very good. This is another answer to the Shaila. That how could the Apter Rebbe be such a fan of Tanya and at odds with Chassidus Chabad? Well, you see from Reb Baruch is two things. Tanya was limited. It was Dafka the expansions later. So that could be another answer to the Apter Rebbe. But Reb Baruch, so Reb Baruch and the Alter Rebbe, it never got as bad as by Avram Kalisker. It never got as bad. But Reb Baruch and the Alter Rebbe, they always had this, you know, you don't want to use the wrong words. But I have to say the following story. Reb Baruch told the Alter Rebbe, you know who I am? When I was 2-3 years old, my Zayd, the Baal Shem Tov, held me. He asked me, what's a Levana? I said, Levana? Lamed Beis, Nesivus of Chachma, 32 pathways of wisdom. The Nun is the 50 gates of Bina. And I said that when I was 2 years old. And the Alter Rebbe said, if your Zayd would have held a goat in his hands, would have said the same thing. It wasn't you, it was your Zayd. This story you have to say though. Even during the time of the conflict, the Alter Rebbe was once traveling to a city where a Baruch had a chassid there. And the chassid thinks to himself, if the Alter Rebbe comes here, I can't visit the Alter Rebbe. It's not loyal to the Baruch. But if the Alter Rebbe comes here, I can't not go. That's disrespectful to the Alter Rebbe. I got to skip town. So he went to Mezhebush, to the Baruch. Reb Baruch lived in Mezhebush, where Zayda lived. So Reb Baruch tells him, you don't usually come here. So he tells Reb Baruch, the Litvak is by us. The Alter Rebbe's contemporaries would call him the Litvak because he came from that region. So Baruch said, So the guy said, the Litvak is by us. Baruch says, you talk the Alter Rebbe, the Litvak? You just lost this world. You lost your Olam Haba.
Yeah.
You're not going to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. So the guy was flabbergasted. Rebbe, I'm so sorry. Baruch says, you're sorry to me? You didn't offend me. You have to ask the Alter Rebbe. Wow. He travels to the Alter Rebbe, and this guy's broken. Now, man, the guy's not... If the guy was a Schwanz, he could have just stayed there and not sinned. Yeah, he left town. And he used the term, he's the Litva. So the Alter Rebbe said like this, Reb Baruch took away your Olam Hazeh, I can't change that. It's gone. It's gone. Your Olam Haba, I take it upon myself to restore to you.
Wow.
Whether you will be buried amongst Jews remains to be seen. That was his mechama that he got. The guy left, his business was destroyed very quickly, lost all his money. He got a job working for the government, a clerk in a government office, and it didn't take long till somebody was accused of treason. Someone in the office, and he used to stamp papers. He stamped some of these papers, so he was thrown into prison. Dies in prison. The guard quickly tells the Chevra Kadisha, if you want the body, give me X amount of dollars, take him and bury him. So they paid off the guard, they took the body, they buried him. A short while later, the Russian investigators that were looking into the case, they wanted the clerk, the guy that was stamping the papers, so they came to the prison. They wanted him, stand trial. He died. They didn't believe. So the Russians said, show us. So Jews had to take him to the cemetery, and they showed him where he's buried. And the Russian says, we don't believe. Dig him up. They dug up the body. And the Russians look at the body and they see it's taka him. So the head of the investigation, he starts stamping his feet and he screams at the dead body, you're lucky you're here. If it was up to me, you wouldn't have been buried in the cemetery. Right. So you see how even that, fascinating story. What you see from there is Reb Baruch had tremendous respect for the Alter Rebbe. The debate was Okay, hold on. So you asked, wait a second. You're saying in Chassidus Chabad, it's all about ourself, what we create for ourselves, and it's not about the Rebbe? Really? Der Shvi, it's all about his kashrus. Not that. Look in number 6. This is from the Rebbe's Rishimus. Admor, if anyone has to go, you can go. It's fine. No pressure. The Mittler Rebbe, when the Mittler Rebbe had to face the breakaway of Rebbe Aaron Strasheller, who was one of the greatest chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, originally a close friend of the Mittler Rebbe, he broke away and made his own court. And Admorhem Tzoi, Mittel Rebbe said to the Moshe Vilenker and Yechezkel Druer, two big chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. And they went to the Strasheller. They left the Mittel Rebbe. And the Mittel Rebbe said like this, Drabes, kutzim, thorns. My father, Hayachal, was able to speak to wood and to rocks. Meaning all you are really wood and rock. All the spiritual levels you have, my father gave it to you. Because he could see, I'm a Yerush, as er is a Yerush, I inherit. Das foster tatat gezok, whatever my father gave you, I can take away. He warned them 3 times, each time 3 months in between. They sollen and haben kein iskim mit him. He shouldn't be involved with Strasheller. And the Mittel Rebbe said, this, the factor of Aaron Strasheller is a Rebbe, artisnit, that doesn't bother me. Aber auf Zeh, but Reb Moshe Vilenker Druer hater kpeda. I don't care if Aaron's a Rebbe, but you shouldn't go. Reb Moshe Vilenker Taka became ois mahus. He lost his entire identity. His whole spiritual identity was taken away. He later came to the Mittel Rebbe. Das ist the Rishimus von Rebbe. The Rebbe hat das gehört von Friedeker Rebbe.
What does it mean? Ois mahus?
His whole identity was just
What's that?
he was a chassid, he was a this, he was that. He became a pashti.
These people had that tremendous.
A mental breakdown?
No. Their souls were revealed inside of them. These people had a certain level of Ruach HaKodesh. Moshe Vilenker, these were, it says in Hayom Yom, Moshe Vilenker, he started off with Moichin de Gadlus. Then he had 10 years he worked on getting Moichin Rechovim. The Taka, he lost all of his spiritual understanding, was all gone. So he asked the Mittel Rebbe, or let me die. Give me back or die. And he died. He died. Chazkel Druer never came.
He died without anything.
Moshe Vilenker died an empty man.
And what says
He asked the Mittel Rebbe, give me back my identity or let me die. The Mittel Rebbe said, I'm sorry, you'll die. Yechezkel Druer, he never came back. He never came back. He would. But when Yechezkel Druer, when he would daven, and he felt that he was a skeleton, he was lost. His soul was lost.
Where is Chazkel?
Where is Chazkel? Yeah. Where am I? It's very sad. So what do you see from here, though? That means that the Alter Rebbe gave them their whole identity. Isn't that Shlomo Kalina's thing? Like, how do you explain that? So the answer is, it's the difference between Parnasa during the Yidden were in the desert versus now. When you get mon from heaven, it's clearly the Eibush giving. Now, it's the Eibush is also giving, but you have to work, you have to toil. There's avodah, but underneath everything is the Eibush's bracha. By the Polish Chassidim, it's like mon, the tzad is giving and giving. Mashen came by Chassidus Chabad, the Chassidim have to toil. You toil though, and then the Rebbe's bracha.
Make no mistake, it's the Rebbe.
Right. But you need to work. So look at number 10 for a second. This is just a word from the Rebbe. We'll end with this. The Rebbe said in the Sikha in Tafshin Yud Zayin, the shit of Chabad is that every Yid needs to work on his Avon of Hasogin Alikus. Shittas of Chassidus Poland is Kiyadua Maimer of Reb Shlomo Karliner. Tzaddik Bemenasa Yichya will live. Don't read Yichya, but Yichaya will give off life. That means that the tzaddik should work hard, and everybody else, with the munah of the tzaddik that they have, the tzaddik gives them life. So the Rebbe says like this: they're taka two legitimate shittas. They both exist now, but in the future, everyone agrees to the Alter Rebbe. Because then it's going to be Mola Ha'aretz Deus Hashem Kamayim Layom Machasim. Every single person will have Avon of Asog and Getlachkeit. And it says, Ki Kulam Yedel all know me. So the Rebbe says that there's a legitimate machlokas, but only now. The Alter Rebbe was a man of the future, because in the future everyone agrees. What's interesting is, in Tafshin Nun Beis, the Rebbe spoke about miracles and said that nowadays, even in Chabad, we have to koch in Meifsim. And the Rebbe said, because Chizkiah was denied becoming Meshmiach. That was. The Rebbe had gesagt, dass Chizkiah is nicht gewen Mashiach because he wasn't Meshabech, the Eibusher noch der Muhammad seiner. He didn't praise Hashem. So the Rebbe says, in order to bring Mashiach, you have to be Meshabech, and Dafka tell over the stories. So it's interesting. The Alter Rebbe was very much for Chassidus Chabad, no Meifsim. So Rebbe says la'asid lavoi, and even maybe right now before la'asid lavoi is already there. The Alter Rebbe would agree you should talk about miracles, but the other Chassidim would agree you kach sich in breaking your mind over Chassidus, because that's what Mashiach's Zeitin is all about. Ki kulam yedu oisi. So no longer are the two things dependent on each other. No longer is breaking your mind on a likus connected to not speaking miracles. No. Now for a different reason. You got to sing the miracles of the Eibishter, and that's going to bring Mashiach. So it's interesting.
What's interesting is that the Rebbe later told people said by Farenga to print Aaron Sashel's Chassidus.
Mesoshelach
Yes, the Aaron Sashel's Chassidus.
This is love.
They should print it. The Kahos will print it. Yeah. That's what Rebbe gives up. Yeah.
Anyhow, that's the story.
Amazing. Oh, yeah.
The Alter Rebbe had it hard. The Alter Rebbe was a little lonely.